Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Google App for Education, a teaching platform. My name is Leovi, and my goal for today is for me to be able to share with you all the information that I have been using on Google Classroom, Google Platform, all the Google apps. I've been using Google App for Education for many years now. And at the end of the session, I hope you can take away a lot of the stuff that you can use for your classroom. So before we begin, here's our agenda for today. Oh, let me just shut off my cam. There you go. So our agenda for today will cover what's Google App for Education. We'll cover what's Google Drive, what is it really for, how we organize it, what's Google Doc, what can we use Google Doc for, Google Form, and Google Slides. So before everything else, let's talk about what's Google App for Education. Google has so many apps, and there are certain apps that we teachers could actually use in teaching. Now, a couple of them are shown here. You have the icon for the form, the doc, the drive, the classroom, the slides. So it's a Google App for Education is an educational offering to schools. It's a platform for creating and collaborating. And there's a key. In order for us to really use Google App for Education, there is something that we need to learn, and that's the copy and the sharing. Because the goal of Google App for Education is for collaboration. So everyone must learn the basic, teacher and student alike. Therefore, we as teachers, we need to be very familiar. At the same time, we need to teach our students how to do this basic stuff. You know, when I start my year in teaching any course that I have for my kids, I have to teach them this basic because I know for a fact I'm going to be integrating Google Classroom and all the Google apps during my entire year of teaching, since I do blended classroom also. So we need to know how to copy and share documents. We share that to the students, and the students also need to learn how to copy and share. So without further ado, so let's teach you how to copy files. Some of you may be familiar already, so which is great. And what I'm showing you here are snapshots from my own Google Drive and Google Files. So the first thing is how to copy files. First is you're going to click the file, and then you will choose make a copy right there. And then after that, it's going to bring you to this option. And the third step will be for you to edit file name. So you may want to edit the name of the file and then decide on which folder it's going to, you want to put the copy in. If you want to put it in a separate folder, if you want to put it in your drive, then you have to choose this option on which folder. Next, how to copy the folder. It's a similar concept. You will have to right click on the folder. You will choose the option make a copy, and then you will the copy will automatically appear, and you will edit the file name and destination. It's very similar in copying the file. Now, how to share. This is where many of us are a little bit off in terms of we forget the share settings. So let me just go over a few things here. So option 1, you're going to click the blue button that says share on the upper right hand corner of your file. And once you click that, it's going to give you the option, and then you'll have to right click the file and choose the share option. Once you click the share option, it will ask you to choose the share setting, in which you will have to pick view only. So in this case, you are not giving the copier, or the one you're sending the file to actually edit your work. Okay. Now next, how to share the folder. It's going to be similar step. You're going to click share, right click, choose the target folder, and then you're going to click the share. And then you will enter the email address. You're going to enter the email address of the collaborator, and you will edit the share setting. And this is very, very important. If it's something that's going to be for collaboration purposes, this icon of pencil icon here, you will have to choose can edit. If you do not want your document to be altered or changed, then your share setting should only be for view. Now, it's the responsibility of the other person, of the other party, to make a copy of that document for themselves. And that's very, very important, people. Okay. Now, let's move on to the first app, Google Drive. So what's a Google Drive? It is your platform for organizing the work. So because it's meant for organization, it's very, very crucial that you as a teacher or you as an individual know how to organize everything in your drive. What I'm going to show you again are snapshots of my drive. So here, this is how I organize my drive. You will have to create folders for each category and create subfolders. This would be a little painstaking at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it's going to be so smooth and things would be very easy for you in terms of locating stuff, in terms of saving material. So if you can see here, I have folder, I have the folder living environment, I have a subfolder. One of them is 5 stations, and within that subfolder, I have another subfolder, which is assessment. And within that assessment, I have all those subfolders for individual assessments. So it's easy for me to actually locate the assessments or any material that I need to find. All right, so moving on. How else can we organize our drive? You will notice here I also use color codes. I used pink, blue, green, however you would want in terms of you figuring out what's the relevance of each color. Okay, now for me, you can see here all greens and then one blue and then one green. Now the green for me, I use that because it's meant that I'm actively using it. And then this one, the blue, meant like it's something that is an additional material, but I'm not actually or actively using the material. All right. Another way to organize the drive is number the files for quick navigation. So you can see here, this is actually my lesson slide discussion for my classroom. And you can see that I've numbered them. I've numbered them from, I used 001, 002. I used 3-digit number. Why? Because in a year, I'm going to have 100 or more than 100 lessons that I will be saving in my drive. So I can't be using a 2-digit number because I'm sure I'm gonna go over that. Next one. How else or how to add shared files or folder into my drive for easy access. So this is one more way to organize. When people share stuff, like for example, in this webinar, I'm going to be sharing materials with you. So all those materials will go into your shared with me file. You don't want that in the shared with me only because you will constantly look at the shared with me file and then scroll to how long it had been. So instead of doing that, you could actually save those files into your drive for easy access. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to the shared with me to my drive. So you're going to click add to my drive from the drop down menu. And once it's added to your drive, that is when you can put it in the corresponding folder or subfolder that you actually created. And you can also change the name should you need to change the name. All right. Well, this one is something with, when students submit work through Google Classroom, when students submit their work through Google Classroom, there's an automatic submission that's created. So the submission feeds includes a timestamp. So this is for easy navigation also when you're working on your Google Drive using or through Google Classroom. All right, so let's move on to the next app, which is Google Doc. Personally, this is how I use Google Doc. And I'm hoping that whatever I'm presenting with you guys is something that you could, actually use also for your classroom. I find this very useful. I find this very effective. That's why I organize my slide presentation this way. So Google Doc, I use it for collaborative teacher planning. It saves me time. Saving time and sharing ideas can be maximized using the docs. Examples include, but not limited to, the following. So we do have this what you call teacher team. In short, it's like you have your department, you have your subgroups. How can we use Google Doc with collaborating with co-teachers? Or let's say you want to plan in writing a lesson plan or curriculum, and you are working remotely. So how are you going to be able to do that? You can use Google Docs. So let me show you how it's applied in my classroom. Well, this one was in 2016, as you can see. I have been using Google for Education for many years now, and when our school started to buy the domain for the Google domain, I was the first one who pioneered the use of Google Classroom, and my class was the first one who actually acquired the cart, the Chrome cart, and the following year was the start when there were a few or a couple of teachers who started using it. So I'm quite excited to share whatever information I'm using to you guys. So this one is a document that was like a template document. And what you just basically need to do is to do the share. So the same information I told you before, you have to add the email of the person that you would want to share the document with, and you will allow them to, do you want it like for edit? If you want the person to be working on the document, then you have to choose can edit. Once you have done that, that person will have the access to this document and can edit it. Now, you can see here members in attendance are the following. There's me, and then we have like 1, 2, 3 more people. And how we did it was like this. Okay, you'll see something, a few difference here. You see the blue, you see the orange, you see purple, and you see the black. So basically what we did was everyone was typing an outcome, next steps, document shared, goal of the meeting, and each person is using a color code. And whatever we have completed in this document was then shared to our department AP. And even though we could be physically close, we could be remote from each other, yet we could be working on this document. So this is an example of how teachers could be working or collaborating even though they are remote. Now, another one is for ICT. This is for students or team teaching. Let me show you an example of how I used it. All right. So let's say you're team teaching, right? And you're writing a lesson plan, and both teachers need to give the idea or input for the lesson. You have the template here, and basically both teachers will have to edit the document. Again, how would the teachers be able to have the access to this document? You'll have to know the basic, which is to share, type in the email of the person that you would want to share this document to, and make sure that the setting here is can edit, right there, editor, whoever you share the link with, okay? So next one, I'm hoping this one for Google Doc collaborative teacher planning is clear for everyone. Let's move on to the next, which is how do we use or how do I use Google Doc for student jigsaw work? Students can collaborate in creating a document, research, teacher prepared handout in school or at home. To do this, students must know the basic of copying and sharing files. Now, as I said, the basic is very important. Let me show you how I did it for my students. Okay, you can see here a video. Well, this was the setting in the classroom. Each student here has their Chrome, and let me see, I'm hoping you can hear. I'm not sure if you could. All right, you can see here, they're sitting together as a group. They all have the copy of the document. They have the Chrome, and they're all researching they all have to visit the search engine for any new information, yet they're communicating. They could be communicating verbally, but but they can also be doing the comments on their document should they need to. How can you use this for remote learning? Well, imagine they're not physically together, but you have shared the document. And if they decide on the time that they're working on the document, they can see each other's input, and they can see a comment, they can edit, and they can submit it to you guys. All right. Hope that's clear. Let's move on to the next. How else do I use Google Doc for Google Doc? The third one is for peer assessment. Students may be provided with a rubric to assess their own work. And here's an example. All right. So what I did here is I gave a short response questions to some of my AP kids, and I gave them the answer key. And what I basically did, I had them to review their answers and give themselves a point. Now you can see here, there's a timestamp of the comments. So the first one was me, and I gave them 18 over 22 points. Okay. And I made further comments here. And this is the editing mode, and you can just click on any part of the documents, for example, there, and you see this icon, it says add comment. So let's say you want to comment on this part here. You want to comment on this part here, highlight that, and then put the comment. But I don't want to touch that document, so I'm not typing anything. And then here's what the student did. Okay, so Chantel here, from the answer, she gave herself or the group a point, and she explained why, and there you go, a few more scores. And Mary also did her item analysis, and it's verified by me. So is this useful when you're working remotely? I guess it's very obvious that it could be used in terms of how you could actually share ideas, grade, and self-assess or group assess work. All right, moving forward. Google Doc, what are the add-ons? These are few add-ons that you could actually use for Google Doc. But there's one thing that I really would like to share with you guys. And this is something that I love. And why do I love it? Because sometimes I feel like I don't want to really type a lot. So I do this, what you call voice typing. You see this one? I click on that and I'll say, hello, everyone. There you go. Do you see that? All right. So I don't have, I have to stop. I have to stop the mic. There you go. I just have to click that, and it helps me to type my voice. I don't even have to type on the key. I could be working on something else and talking, and my document is working for me. So let's move on. You can explore further these add-ons for Google Doc or post your questions on our chat box for further information. All right, let's now move on to our third app, which is the Google Form. Where do I personally use it? I use it for survey, number one, in my school. At the beginning of the school year, getting to know means me finding out some information about my kids. I need to know what languages they speak. I need to know what grade level. I need to know if they passed the state exam. I need to know a few other things, so they have access to the computer and whatever, right? So I create a sample student information survey using the form and the sheet being created. And I'll also touch base a little bit on the sheet. So let me open this first link for you. Okay, here is an example of the student survey that I created. Actually, one of the survey that you did was a free survey for our webinar. And this is similar to how it's done. So I create the form, I ask the questions, and I edit the setting. I can go over the actual work later on our live webinar. I will have to change the setting to quiz in order for me to get the item analysis from the group. Or, I'm sorry, let me go to the general. I can also choose some of the choices, like, do I want to collect the email? Do I want to limit it to one response? You know, if it's survey only, then you don't have to limit that to one response, because you know sometimes people would like to change the responses. However, if you are using the form for an assessment, you would want to click on limit one response. That means the kid or the student may not redo the exam more than once. And are you restricting it to your school or whatever? So you have to unclick this one and then look and click make it as a quiz, and then don't forget to save it. Once it's done, you can actually edit the questions, and you can even put on you know, if there's a specific answer, and normally that happens when you're doing the assessment. So let's move on to the next example. All right, so here's the sheet that actually populated automatically after they fill out the form. Now, some of you may ask, how did you get to this point? So for example, let me go back to the form. There you go. And here's the responses. I click on the responses. Do you see this icon here, the green? And it says, do you want it? There you go. It created the sheet for me. And what I love about the sheet is it's in Excel form, and you have the timestamp here and all the responses. There you go. And I personally use this if I'm asking the kids to share a couple of links to their work. All right, next one is Google Form. This is how I use Google Form a lot. I use it for my assessment. And you can see here an example of how I created my assessment. So I have it in my, let me show you also. Take a look there. I have it organized from my AP Envi to the weekly outline, and under weekly outline, it's under test assessment, and I have them color coded right there. So this is an example of the form. Let me open the form for you. Okay. So I created this. I ask for their last name, their first name, and then I type in, is it a multiple choice question that I want? So if it's a multiple choice question, then I type in, are there A, B, C, D, E, or is there A, B, C, D only? All right, you have to click that required. That means the student cannot move on to the next question unless they've answered this one. And do you want an answer with a point? Then you have to click the answer key and click on the answer B and put the point there if it's 2 point or 1 point or 0 point. Okay, there you go. And then you have to click done. Now, if you have 20 questions, do you have to do this 20 times? The answer is you don't have to, because over here it says duplicate. So if I duplicate that thing, you can see, well, it duplicated question 1. But if it's question 2, you just have to add it question 2, and you also have to add it the answer key. If it's A, then you have to choose A. It's 1 point, yes. All right, but because this is something that I just added, I will have to delete that slide. There you go. So how many questions do I have on this assessment? I have, oh, there you go. There's another section here. So I have a total of, okay, I think I have, yeah, I have chapter 2, let me just show you, 2, 19, 20. Okay, I have 25 questions here. When all the kids are done submitting their work, I will get the responses. Here's the sheet. There you go. Okay. And it translates to me their answers. Now, there's one more thing I wish I can show you. I'm hoping I could. There you go. Let me go to the responses. There's an icon here. It says not accepting responses. So let's say you gave this as an exam, which I personally do use this. So I do give assessments on weekends for my pre-college course kids, and I'll tell them, okay, I'm going to open the form at 8 o'clock in the evening and I'll close it an hour after. So an hour after, I need to be alert and close this, not accepting responses. That way, the kids know that they cannot put in any more answers, or they cannot answer the exam anymore. All right. Now, what's so good about the form? If it's an assessment and you have put in the answers, it will actually help you do an item analysis. You see here? There you go. You can see how many kids received those points. So out of 25 points, there were 2 who received 19. 120, 120, and then I have 24, 5 of them, and I have 1 that's 25. And moving forward, I also have the individual, there you go, with this timestamp of what time they finished the form. There you go, you see that. Who did the answer, the assessment latest? There you go. Okay, and further down, you will have an individual item analysis for each question. So for example, question 1, out of 15 kids, 14 answered B and 1 C. Now, over here, you got 14 correct answer, 1 wrong answer. Maybe you would want to find out who is this person. No? There you go. So I love the form because it tells you or gives you the idea of how many percent kids pass, fail a certain or got correct on certain items. Let's move on. So here are the add-ons for Google Form. You can explore and add these whenever you need to play around with some of the add-ons to your Google Form. You can use them. You can use the Octopus, which is like a rubric once you have created the exam. You can also use a Flubber, which is almost like an exam form. You can also have the Survey Monkey. You can have the QR code maker. After you create the exam, just create the QR code and post that QR code in the classroom, and then have the kids scan the QR code, and it will bring up the form that you have created for them. All right, we are now moving forward to our 4th app, which is the Google Slides. Where do I use this? I use this for collaborative presentation. So collaborative presentation between students. And again, the basic, which is copy and share. Let's open that link. Okay. Here's an example of a project that a group of my students created before, and they were using Gapminder. A Gapminder is they actually are given the data. It's an application, an online application where they can research and look up at specific topics, and they can plug in some information, and then the data will be translated for them. So they were working on, this example of work of my kids are something that's done outside our regular classroom meetings. So what they did here was, this is an over the weekend project, and 1, 2, there were 3 people in this team, and they created this Gapminder project using Google Slides. There you go. Okay, so they were basically using the data from the Gapminder. Let me show you what's Gapminder. It's actually awesome. I use it a lot. Oop, quite slow. But once you have the access, there you go. Okay, so this is actually quite cool. You see those bubbles, the year. They have inputted the X and the Y coordinates here. For the X, they have the income, and then they have the life expectancy, and for each bubble, it corresponds to the year. So from this Gapminder, they actually tried to answer the information or explain their focus country, which is Nepal. All right, there you go. Let's move on to how we use Google Slide for collaborative planning between teachers. Just close that. Here's an example. So I'm going to use my slide presentation for you. So let's say if I'm working with a co-teacher to complete this, the next thing that I have to do is just to do the basic, which is to share. So let's say I need to share this to Mr. Enoch, Mars. There you go. I see Mars Enoch. I'm going to put you down there. Do I want him as an editor? The answer is yes, because I want him to work on the slide. Then after that, I click send. Where will Mr. Enoch see or check this slide? Because it was shared to him, he will not find it in his drive. Instead, he will find it in the shared with me folder. All right, moving on. What's an add-on? This one is actually very, very good. We have the Pear Deck. And this is a live or remote collaboration between students and teachers. You have a very interactive Google slide. So let's say you type in an answer, the student will also type in the answer, and the teacher will see all the responses on the slide itself. Okay, now let's create the big picture. The next app is Google Classroom. Google Classroom is only one app. Google Classroom is not, it's not the whole, it's not really like covering the entirety of Google Education. It's only one app that puts together all the other apps to create the big picture. So basically, it becomes your platform. Also, one of your big platforms, I mean. So Classroom is another app of Google that allows teachers and students to interact and communicate. The following are some features that will be covered in our presentation. So one of them is posting work, submissions, returns, grading work, real-time feedbacking. Here's an example. There you go. Here is one of the workshops that I have shared that I actually conducted for New York City teachers on Google Classroom. Okay, Google Classroom 101. And, oh, here's a result. My fault. Okay. Real-time feedbacking means I share this one and they will actually comment on the slide that I have. There's also one more that we can use now. It's called Flipgrid, and it could be one thing that it's an add-on also that you can use for Google Classroom. Okay, something that's compatible for Google Classroom. Where else do we use Google Classroom for? We use it for posting topics. Well, just a few tips. When we are posting topics, we need to create topics for the post for easier navigation. Instead of us scrolling all the way down and trying to look for where did the teacher post the notes, the teacher could have done topics so that the kids will just go to the classwork and look for that specific topic. And then the teacher also should number the posts for easier search. And also post topics for multiple classes and or specific students. I'm going to show you more details here and remind me to explain to you when we do our live series. We also use Google Classroom for submissions, grading, and returning work. And here are what's new. So we can have single view of students' work. We can have decimal points in grading assignments. We can transfer ownership. We can select specific students for assigned work. We can schedule assignment ahead or save a draft and set topics for quick navigation. During a remote here a few months ago, my class starts at 7:30, but with the asynchronous learning, some of the kids may not be up at that early, or even I myself may not be alert and up that early. So what I do is I actually save or I schedule my assignment at a specific time. So I post it for 7:30, even though I'm not like in front of my computer. The Google posting is being created for me already. All right, here are the compatible programs with Google Classroom. And if you attended my workshop last session on meaningful learning, online and offline um, platform for remote learning, I did cover Quizlet, Edpuzzle, Khan Academy, and YouTube, I would believe. So here are a few things that you can actually look into. And I have explained here what each of these items are, and you can click on this information further on. All right. Now I'm going to stop okay. So this will end our first half of our webinar, and feel free to put questions in your chat box for us to answer later on. Thank you, and I'm hoping that you did pick up some good stuff during my presentation. Have a good day, everyone.